Welcome to Experts Explain Trauma. Today we've got Bev Mitelman joining us. She's going to be answering some common questions that survivors have about attachment style, and she's also going to be giving us some helpful tips on how to manage our attachment style. Thank you, Bev, for being here today. I'm excited.
Me too. Thank you for having me back.
I know. You do such a great job on these questions and, talking about attachment styles. And I've learned a ton from you. And actually, my daughter-in-law has learned a ton from what you've done. When I was up there visiting, we were talking about it. She's learning about attachment style. So yeah, it's awesome. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
So wonderful to hear. People need to understand this stuff. It's so great. Thank you for telling me that.
Well, you said something in the podcast, though. You said if we all just knew our attachment styles, how much better our lives would be. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so true. It's so true. I wish I knew mine back in the day, but I know it now, and I'm doing much better. So here's our question for today. Is it possible to rewire my attachment system if I've never actually experienced safe love or secure connection, not even once?
Oh, okay. I'm writing down components of that. Never experienced safe love or connection. Okay. So, is it possible? 100% it is. Right? So that question would be very much akin to someone, for example, and I often talk about like weight management because it's something that most people will understand. So if someone says, for example, that they are 50 pounds overweight, let's say, right? And they'll say, is it possible for me to actually be at a healthy weight if I have never experienced life at a healthy weight? I've always been overweight my whole life. So the question is it possible? Yes, it absolutely is. It might feel like it's not possible, but you absolutely can attain it. It is a little more challenging, right? Because someone who has, for example, experienced safe love and connection, or experienced a period in their life, to use my example, where they were at a healthy weight, they understand the parameters of that and what it takes to get there, right? So they have a better understanding of what could be sort of considered vague to some people. But what's so fascinating to about the human body, all of us, including our mind, is that we are incredibly malleable, right? So just like we can make all these beautiful changes physically to our body if we have the right dedication, the commitment, the right set of exercises, and we have an ongoing effort. All of those parameters will be the exact same things that we need to make changes to our mind. So when we talk about someone who hasn't experienced safe love or connection, what we're saying is that they would have grown up in environments where they didn't get consistent emotional attunement, right? So they don't even know what it feels like to have someone love them consistently, predictably, without judgment, without criticism, without, for example, dismissing their needs, all of these things. So for them, the concept of secure love might seem really foreign, right? But all it takes is one experience, right? One experience where they are exposed to a person. It can be a romantic partner. It could be someone that they develop a true, authentic friendship with, right? That they can now feel that safety in knowing that I can speak to this person and they will not only honor my feelings, but they'll respond in a healthy way. They'll help me, to work through my feelings. So the experiences that we have in life are very, very important to helping us determine what we think is capable, right? That's the first thing. Do I even think it's capable that I'm capable of feeling this way? So you absolutely are. And the other thing about attachment styles is that it's learned behavior. So if you have never experienced secure love or connection, what that means is that you've gone through the world in this in this way where you're in survival mode, right? And you developed all of these maladaptations, strategies to deal with this disconnect, right? Now, just like you learnt all of these strategies and ways to cope with your parental figures who weren't attuned to you, you learned behaviors to handle what was in front of you. And you can absolutely unlearn those behaviors and relearn new behaviors. Because what's so interesting in this question is that we develop behaviors stemming from when we're really, really young. And then when we're no longer in our home of origin, we continue to do the same things, even though we're not facing the same threat. Right? So we continue to, for example, someone who had a very critical parent is less likely to openly share, right?
Mhm.
Because they fear judgment.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, a lot of us, right? Like
Yeah.
one of the core wounds of the dismissive avoidant who's less likely to share is, I am defective. Like there is something wrong with me. They are extremely sensitive to criticism and judgment because they would have experienced that in childhood. But you take that individual out of their home of origin, and let's say it's a man who had a very critical mother, let's just say. And now you put them in a loving relationship with a woman who is warm and not judgmental, not instinctually, they're still going to behave in the same way, fearing that they're going to be judged, right? So these patterns follow us. Now, if you become aware of them, and you work through some of these subconscious wounds, right, that we have stored, these patterns that we have stored, and you practice safe communication with your partner, you absolutely can get to a place where you start experiencing healthy interactions, which will help you to relearn a pattern of communication without judgment.
Mhm. And I'm actually an example of that because we talked about this on my podcast, but I was the anxious attachment. Is that the right term?
Hmm. It is anxious,
So I was
preoccupied. Yeah.
that, and yeah, yeah, that was me, and full on, and I just remember, and I talked about it on the podcast too, just feeling so desperate, and it's taken a while to work through it, and of course understanding it, but yeah, you absolutely can overcome it, and it did
Hmm.
take some deep healing within me, and a lot, and some I guess challenging some of the beliefs that I had had about myself,
Yeah.
and have done some deep healing that I don't have that anymore. And oh, I can't tell you how good it feels. That was
It's like a
awful. That
relief,
was awful the
right?
way I felt.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
absolute relief. So anxious, preoccupied is really there's a sadness there because really what people are
Yes.
trying to stave off is this idea of I will be abandoned. If I show you my true authentic self, you will leave me. And so I'm going to morph myself into someone who is absolutely compliant and fully focused on your needs so that I'm extremely likable as a person and you won't leave. But that's not your true
Yep.
authentic
100%.
self, right?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
exhausting to be so focused on someone else's
It
needs,
is.
right? And again, it's because you're trying to stave off the idea that this individual might abandon you because in childhood, you would have experienced inconsistent love, right? Your parents would have
Mhm.
loved you
Mhm.
maybe some of the time, not all of the time. It was unpredictable. So you wouldn't have experienced, those who are anxiously attached wouldn't have experienced this safe, consistent emotional attunement. It was sort of
Right.
like, you never knew what you were going to get.
Yep. And then the people that I chose in my life when I was in an unhealthy mindset were the exact opposite of what I actually needed, which then ended up fulfilling
Right.
the thought that, "Oh, everybody's gonna abandon me." Well, yeah, because I picked men who abandoned.
Yeah,
Surprise.
such an interesting, right? It's that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So
Yeah.
we tend to we tend to create situations that will sort of reinforce what we already believe is
Yes.
true, right? So what you were doing
Crazy.
there is you were recreating your childhood dynamic. And
Mhm.
most people will say something like this concept in psychology tends to get watered down a little bit, right? Where we'll say like a woman is going to fall in love with someone like her father, or we say a man is going to fall in love with someone like her mother. That's not exactly accurate. What people generally do is they try to replicate the dynamic that they had with their caregiver when they choose their romantic partner. So if your caregivers were highly critical and dismissive of that, you're generally going to choose that type of person again because and unknowingly, subconsciously, but because to you, that's love. That's your template. That's all you know. So for
Yep,
you,
yep,
if
that's
you
my
were,
normal.
it's that's your normal, right? That's like your baseline. So if you were
Mhm.
used to having people that were inconsistent, towards you. One day they were there and then one day they're warm, the next day they're cold, one day that if you're used to that sort of like, volatile type of emotional engagement, then that's what you believe is love. And so when you grow up as a grown woman and you go into the dating market, that's subconsciously what you seek out.
Exactly, that's exactly what I did, and, one of the ways that I think I broke it is I got tired of it, like, I recognized it. I can
Yeah.
recognize my
Good for
behavior in it, first of all. Yeah, which was hard, and even though I recognized it, it took me a while to figure out how to do something different, right?
yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
but, I didn't learn completely because I ended up getting into another relationship that was pretty close to the same. It was a very narcissistic relationship.
But hold on a
I
minute.
learned after
Not
that.
but close, but not exactly the same, right? Because I think people think that learning is
Yes.
like one day I'm broken and the next day I'm healed. And first of all, those two terms don't even exist. None of us are broken, none of us are
Yeah.
healed. We're
Right.
all like we're in a journey. So you would have
Yeah.
experienced, your first relationship would have been sort of like the worst of the worst. And then the second one would have been slightly better,
Yeah.
but still bad. And
Yes.
that's very reflective of how we heal. We heal in small increments. And it's not like a trajectory like this. It's sort of like up and down, right? But over time, we do get to that better place. So it's the same with attachment styles. Even when we're moving towards secure attachment, we're going to have moments where we still get triggered, where our old wounds come up. And the goal is always to, okay, recognize that I'm feeling an emotion because of this wound. I'm acting in a certain way because of my thought pattern attached to this wound. And now that I've recognized it, which is already, I'm so much further ahead than I was the last time that I didn't
Yes.
recognize it, right? Now that I recognize it, I have the opportunity to talk myself down a little bit, to change my reaction, to modify my behavior. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to feel it. It means
Right.
I'm gonna still feel these things, but I'm going to possibly deal with it in a healthier way, and
Mhm.
that is healing.
Yeah, because I'll tell you when I was in the narcissistic relationship, I do remember thinking, I recognize this crazy. I didn't know at the time it was narcissistic. I just knew it was really crazy behavior, and I had healed enough that I was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing this. No, I'm not doing this at all." And so I had to really take a step back again and really do some more deep healing before I got into my next
Mhm,
relationship. And it's very different and it's so much
mhm.
healthier. And the way we came together is healthier and the way that we communicate and the relationship we have is so much healthier. So, and I'm saying that not because I'm like somebody special, it's because I have done a lot of work and he's done a lot of work as well. And and we both desire to have a really healthy relationship because we had bad ones.
Yeah, and, it's interesting because, again, So you are special in the sense that you were able to recognize you made a commitment to yourself to do the work, that you have, sort of put yourself in a similar situation where you allowed yourself to re-engage in a new relationship but handle things differently. And special in the
Mhm.
sense that unique, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't invest the time to learn their attachment styles, to go towards that healing trajectory. A lot of people will continuously make the same mistakes over and over. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I
Mhm.
hear people say, I don't know why I just keep choosing the wrong partner. And then they look up to the universe like, the universe must have it in for
Help
me.
me.
It's not
Yeah.
the universe. Like,
It's
right?
you.
You
The common
Right,
denominator is
there's a piece
you.
of accountability. Right, and so you
Mhm.
are special in the
Mhm.
sense that you saw that as a point of accountability, so good for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And it does help to hear this and I'll tell you I didn't like the way I behaved in either one of those relationships, I'm not proud of it. Um and that was the other motivating factor too is, I didn't want to hurt a person, and I knew I had the capability and so I needed to do something to get that under control, and that was part of my healing process
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? Like, I've looked back on some of my past relationships too, and I'm like, what it's so obvious to me what I needed to heal, like, when I look back and I think about some of the things that I said and did. Like, it's obvious to me now, years later, what I needed to heal, but you're right, like, there's a point of shame, right? I'm embarrassed about some of the things that I would have said and done too, like, none of us are perfect, and our emotions, everyone, are irrational. If our emotions are dysregulated, we move into irrational thought and behavior, and so, we all have moments that we're less proud of, um, but those of us that do best are really the ones that can go, all right, I didn't handle this well. This type of situation is likely going to reproduce. So the next time, how am I going to handle it differently?
Yeah, 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 and doing a lot of apologizing, right?
Mostly
Yeah,
to myself. Like, that's the thing is that,
yeah,
like, I think a lot of
yeah.
times I'm just I know I experience, like, when I think about, for example, the breakup of my last boyfriend before I'm with, the man that I'm with now, the relationships are night and day, right, in terms of authenticity and respect, and, um, but yeah, I look back and I ask myself, "Why was I so strongly trying to hold on to a particular relationship that I knew wasn't good for me?" That's the point of learning, right? Like, why was I ascribing this person so much trust and love and that wasn't earned? So what in
Oof,
me
yeah.
was doing that? Right? Because
Mhm.
this other person, let's be honest, this other person, he wasn't special. None of us are really special in that regard, right? Like,
Yeah,
so why were we holding on so tight? That's
yeah,
the work.
yeah, exactly. Oh, I know why I hung on. I know exactly why I hung on. He was the only man in the whole world that was ever gonna love me, that was my belief, so I get
That
it.
was your
So
and I'm gonna venture
that
a guess to say that he probably repeated that too. If he was narcissistic, he probably that was
Mhm,
part of his mantra.
mhm.
That's out of the narcissist playbook 101. No one else is gonna love you the way I do.
Yeah, 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 yep, exactly. Yeah.
Anyways, going off
Well,
topic, but you and I, we have such great conversations, you and I.
I know these are really good. I know, I love them. And so what do we say to our listeners as far as what would be a good step? Like, we talk about it's really important, the self-awareness, right? You bring it up, I bring it up, that how important that is because that's kind of our way of guiding ourselves, and, becoming aware of what your body's doing, what your mind's doing, what choices you're making, what patterns are you continuing to allow yourself to be in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, self-awareness really. Like I have a little quiz on my website at securelylove.com. It's 10 minutes. It's helpful because it's like an entry point, a really easy entry point to just answer a couple
Mhm.
questions and see where you fall on the attachment scale. And for a lot of
Yeah.
people, they have a real aha moment. Like it can be confronting, like,
Mhm.
huh, I never thought about it. So most people generally are very excited at the idea of learning about themselves. So it's one thing to
Yeah.
learn about
Yeah, and it's
attachment
empowering.
styles. It's empowering, yeah. But, most humans will find that there's no more interesting topic on the planet than themselves. That's just a human trait.
Yeah,
It's true. All
that's
of us,
true.
right? And so if you're gonna just read a book on attachment theory, okay, that's one thing. But when you take the quiz, for example, you can really see where you fall. And then you start to unravel, okay, what are some of the patterns that what am I, become aware of my thinking, become aware of my behavior, my physical signs, right? Because your body talks to you all the time. Um, and starting to connect back the dots to, okay, well, I must be feeling this because, right? And so doing that awareness piece and connecting it back to your own thoughts and behaviors, if you do that just as a starting point, you are 10 steps ahead of almost everyone. And then if you really want to take it to the goal line, then you could start reprogramming some of these patterns in the same way that they got programmed the first time. So they got programmed into your subconscious mind because it was things that we saw, heard, felt, like all of these experiences that we had that were attached to some level of strong emotion. And so they get patterned into our mind. So we do the same thing in reverse to be able to repattern new pathways into the brain. So, you know, first step is that awareness. Learn about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? And I will say, when I first heard about that, like, learn about yourself, I was like, "Ooh," that seemed kinda scary, but the truth is, when you understand where you're at and you go and you go at it without judgment, right? You're going at it with a
Right.
curiosity to learn about yourself because you wanna get better, and you can't change what you don't acknowledge, and so I find that to be powerful when and it what it does? You know what it does for me? When I learn more about myself and the behaviors that I had, it gave me a separation between who I was and my behavior, and all of a sudden, because I would always take my
Mm,
behavior as, "Oh, that's me, and I'm bad, and I'm acting out." But what it did is it put
mm.
that space between it, I'm like, "Okay, that makes complete sense why I behave that way." That it's right there in black and white, it makes
Mhm.
complete sense, and it just kinda takes that thread away.
So interesting because there's that core wound of I am bad, is you just said I am bad. We see this come up very commonly for those who are anxious, preoccupied. This idea that they are bad. But I've said this very often. Someone who is unhealed will mistaken their behavior as simply this is my personality. And that's
Yes,
not true.
yes,
Yeah,
$100%.
that is unhealed wounds and your strategies and how you're coping it, that's not your personality. But they mistake
Mhm.
it for their
Yeah.
personality.
They do, that is one thing that we do is we take this in and we make it part of our identity, and it's not. That is not has nothing to do
Mhm.
with your identity. It's simply coping mechanisms that you learned as a child, getting through the stuff that you had to get through, and we carry it that is unhealed, we carry it into our adult life, and that's how we manage our life. And it works for a little bit, and then it doesn't work anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah, so and like a really I know we're coming to time for this particular question, but like even just really simple things, like for a long time I'd say like, you know what, I just don't like big crowds. Like that's just who I am. I prefer much
Yeah.
smaller, intimate gatherings or whatnot. But the truth
Intimate.
is that intimate gatherings yet. But the truth is that I have a very hard time trusting people because of my chaotic
Oh, yeah.
upbringing, because of, and
Mhm.
so being in a large crowd is really unsettling to me. I feel very unsafe because I have a hard time trusting people. And then you put me in the middle of 100 people, I feel really unsafe. And so it's not just
Sounds
my
just like me.
personality. I like it really, most of this stuff goes back to what we would have experienced when we were younger.
That's interesting because I feel the same way about crowds. I feel bad, but I don't like being in big crowds either. And I thought, "Oh, well, that's just me, so I don't like the big crowds." But
My
that makes sense that I
personality.
don't trust. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
trust. So, interesting. Well, that was a
yeah.
well-rounded answer to a question and lots more, so thank you, Bev. Thank you. Do you have any questions for our experts? Let us know in the comments, and make sure to subscribe so that you can get more insightful information on trauma healing.